Hey Joshua, we're back. Another fractional episode here. We've got a couple things on mind to kick off with.
Yeah.
I was interviewing a candidate, one of my customers is looking at bringing on a marketing role. So I'm interviewing this candidate, and I'm really impressed with her. Like out of the gate, she has a PhD, she has an MBA, she's worked at a really high level and been really successful. She's trilingual. She holds a great conversation. She's warm and inviting. I mean,
It sounds like there's no catch here, right? It sounds like this is good.
yeah, right. I'm like, this would be a fantastic person to work with. And she's telling me her story, and she's telling me how in 2023 she was hired at this company as a remote employee. She lives a short plane ride away from where their headquarters is. Yeah, she's got a family there. Her home is there, and she was hired as a remote employee. And now corporate is pushing for a return to office, and they want her to relocate to the city where the headquarters is. And this is her sign to exit. And they're going to lose a fantastic person. Maybe my customer will benefit from that. But I just am like, this is such an interesting case in point in real life about the incredible value of very talented, specialized person that's going to walk out the door because they can't embrace any sort of flexibility or autonomy. But I know you've got some feelings about this. I obviously do.
I'm going to actually take the positive case for a second, and I'm going to flip the roles on us. What do you think is the reason? Is there a good reason that you can figure out for why the company is doing this? Because I've been listening to a lot of different takes over the last year, and I still stand mostly where I did before, which is remote is great for most people most of the time. But there's sometimes where in-person helps to do things faster, better. Is this one of those cases, or what are you kind of gleaning out of it so far from the interview?
Yeah, and I have my bias too towards leaning remote and flexible. But from my understanding, right, this isn't, hey, we wish you'd come collaborate, once a quarter or once a month. Like that would be just fine, right? This is the relocate your family because we think even though your role is completely knowledge based and done from your computer with all the digital tools we have to collaborate with, we just want everybody back in the office. I don't see another reason. I don't know the whole story, right, from the employer side, but I can't think of a good reason.
It sounds like they're not making a call for increased productivity. This does feel like power and control. This does feel like an attempt to be able to demand and exercise your right as the employer to say, nope, everyone's got to be here because I want to see butts in the seat throughout my office. That's horrible. That's like you're unsettling this person's life who you're changing the agreement on them. And I'm presuming this person has proved herself for the last 2 years in a fantastic way. Productivity has probably been better than ever. And then they're suddenly just demanding control back. And it's infuriating, especially we're at the stage in our lives where you and I, we have families that come first. My family, it does come first, period. I love my work. I love my job. I love my ability to be able to do this creative thing that brings me so much joy and helps others. That's fantastic, but it will never come ahead of my family. I think that there's such a culture mind shift in so many places, especially Silicon Valley, of work is most important, and then later on you can have a nice life. I was listening to this 6-hour episode with DHH and Lex Fridman on his podcast, where DHH from Basecamp was basically talking about how his life shifted when he got a family. He realized that the 80 hours in the office for 40 years is not what life is about. Yes, he'll spend 40 hours at his home office remotely, and he does great work. He loves it. But then he checks off and he goes and plays Fortnite with his boys. Like that, so much of the struggle I feel is where people have misplaced priorities. Now, all that to say, sometimes you need people in office. I get it. But this doesn't sound like one of those cases.
Yeah, not to me. And to your point, I think it's not just work that can be like an overwhelming consuming thing, right? I think we see people, whether it's, ultra marathons, right? Like the amount of time and training it takes to go into that, right? Like I think there's a number of different things that people can say, this is the thing I'm into and I'm going to spend all my time and energy on. So it doesn't have to be work. It can be a lot of different things, but yeah, being able to find that balance. And then when you have a family, that changes.
Yeah, it does. And now, to be fair, and we'll talk about this in a second, in the last week, I have probably put in more hours than any time in the last year because of something that I just feel deeply passionate about that I think will shift the entire work environment. But I will not keep this up for months on end. I recognize like that therein leads a path to not having a happy family, and that's more important to me.
Right. You're putting in a season of work for a outcome or a goal that you're trying to accomplish right now. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think this is anyone who's listened to Fractional for a while, and if you're new, welcome. Lance and I have tried to build careers on doing awesome things with other people that we genuinely find as friends or colleagues that could become friends, but then also getting off the laptop and going out on a run, going out on a boat with our kids. Those things are why we do life. It's not the other way around.
Totally. Second topic on my mind today, as we kind of have this abbreviated, different approach to our episodes, was in the gas station. This is where this thought, this experience prompted episode content. Coming home from, all right, so connecting this to the family investment thing, right? I took my daughter to a downhill mountain bike race down in Kellogg, Idaho at Silver Mountain Resort, where she happened to actually win. She got her first W, so it was really fun to see her on the top step of the podium. I was really proud of that. So on the way home, I'm bringing her home, and I have our youngest with us too, and I stop for fuel. The little one needs to go to the bathroom. We go in there, and by the sink where you wash your hands, there's a little sign on the wall that says, if this restroom is in need of service, and the twist is here, it was flip the switch. There was a light switch right below the sign. I see those signs in bathrooms a lot, but they say, find a team member to let them know, right? And I thought that was brilliant for a couple of reasons. One, I have never once made the effort to go find a gas station attendant to tell them, hey, you're out of paper towels, or hey, you're out of soap, or there's a spill, or whatever, right? Like,
or hey, I made a
time.
mess and I'm embarrassed, and can you go clean it up? Like, no one's gonna do that.
Yeah, there you go. That's a whole nother angle. Totally. Right. So it just it reduced so much friction to delivering feedback that I thought I would do that, right? If I was in here and I noticed, even if it was a small thing that I felt was like, it's not that big of a deal, right? Because that's not going to be enough reason to do the work to go find somebody. I could flip a switch. And then I thought too, the interesting thing is, if you go and you tell explicitly somebody you're out of paper towels, they'll walk into the bathroom, they'll replace the paper towels, and they'll walk out. But if you flip the switch, it's a little bit of a treasure hunt, right?
They're going to look around. They'll try to understand the state of it.
Yeah, they take a QA approach. All right, we need to come in. We need to test everything until we find what's wrong. And maybe there's 2 or 3 things that the user didn't notice that the attendant finds and can correct before the next person experiences a deficiency. So I just really liked the idea. It seems super simple. And maybe there's, 10,000 other service stations that do it that way. I've just never been in them. Maybe you all have, but I liked it. And it got me thinking, what is the way that we can reduce the friction for people in our workplaces to say, I've got a problem, right? Maybe protecting anonymity is a part of that, but just making it easier for someone to raise their hand and say, this needs help. This needs work.
So this topic's really interesting because here on Fractional, we've asked for feedback over the years, and we've had some awesome listeners write in and give us feedback, and that's spurred on future episodes. But I'd be lying if I'd said it's as much as I've wanted. It's often been bits here and there that have been useful. In the last week or two, I've on my blog, which I've been writing for a long time, I switched it over from WordPress to Ghost. And I set up a subscription form where you can get 1 post every week for free or 1 post every day for $5 a month. And I basically begged and pleaded with every friend I knew who was tangentially, potentially curious in the topic to subscribe. At one point, Ghost shut me down because they're like, why are you adding people manually? And I explained, and they opened it back up. And I was like, everyone who I've added has told me verbally or in writing that they're good with it. So I've been writing so from November to the start of this month, I wrote basically every day. And I've had friends give me feedback and respond. It's been fantastic. But in the last week or two since using Ghost, what's happened is these people who have agreed to get an email, they are now responding to the emails and just replying and saying, hey, here's a thought, here's a question. One buddy, we were on a run. He's like, hey, so I've emailed you several times. You haven't responded. And I freaked out. Like I had messed up the email response reply to, so it was going to a dead inbox. So I fixed that right away. And I've noticed just today, I had a post that I wrote, it went out, and someone immediately responded and they asked a question. They're like, hey, you said this and this and this. It was about Figma, how I think the design process is changing. Go read it if you're curious. And he's like, but what about this? You didn't talk about this. And I started writing back to him. I was like, well, go read this other article. I'm like, wait a minute. No, I actually didn't give you an answer. And I wrote a 500-word answer to him right there in the email. And then that has now become the basis of a 1,300-word post that's going to go out tomorrow. And he's helping me, even though I'm helping him. It has just lit me up as a writer. I am so excited to have this rapid feedback loop. We're in a group chat yesterday where Jonathan asked me, hey, Joshua, what do you think about this new Figma IPO? What's your thoughts? And my response was, I don't have any opinion. And then I said, well, actually. And I dropped in like 400-word response into our group chat. And then I realized, okay, I need to go write about this. So I wrote about it last night, dropped a 400-word post. And I'm finding, so that I've turned this whole question around, but by having these immediate feedback loops where friends and people I've never even met are able to respond to my writing and ask me questions, it is just spurring me on to write things that hopefully are more valuable and interesting. And it's given me a focal point that I've frankly been loving.
And how are you seeing, like, is this like only friends and acquaintances that are engaging? Are you getting like people that you don't even know that are asking you questions or signing up? How's this going?
One this morning, he just found me randomly somewhere, doesn't know how. He signed up and paid, and he emailed me a question. Yesterday, I emailed everyone who signed up that I didn't know and said, thanks for joining. It was a custom email. I did not do an auto reply. And I said, thanks for joining. What would you like to know? And so he responded back. So I kind of prompted him to let him know I was a real person who would respond. And so this morning he's like, hey, hello again. Here's a question I have. And I actually placed an ad in this other newsletter last week, and I've gotten 14, 15 people from that ad. They subscribe for free. And I've been emailing them like, hey, how can I help you? And some of them are probably freaked out, but a couple have responded. And I love that because these are people that are like me, other designers who are looking for help, and I'm happy to give it. And then I can take that data and put it into future posts.
Awesome. Okay, so then the question here is to our audience, what do you want to know? What do you want to hear about? What should we talk about?
All right, yeah, we'll turn that around. On Fractional, Lance and I, we've had a bunch of interviews. We've had a bunch of calls. We've had a bunch of discussions. We've wrestled through this topic, and I think things are starting to shift where Fractional is. I was talking to a founder recently. He's like, da-da-da-da, hired a Fractional. I was like, wait, pause, hold on. Can you tell me more about that? Because my buddy and I have a whole podcast about this. So yeah, listeners, thank you for listening. Really appreciated this, and we're going to keep going. We have so much more to say, but what do you want to hear? What are you dying to know? Do you just want to hear more Fractional 101 stuff? Because Lance and I have talked about that a ton, but maybe it's time to recycle. We're open to feedback where we can take this. Otherwise, we're going to keep just talking about the things that are interesting to us, and we also love that too.
Yep, and we'll continue to have guests, interesting people that we think are interesting and we want to learn from. But yeah. Is there a guest that in particular that you'd like to hear from? Feel free to make an introduction.
And I will shill myself for a minute, joshuawold.com. Please go sign up for the free newsletter. Once a week, you're going to get a post from me about this. This Monday's post was basically, you're searching for success in your career, and you could miss out on the fact that it's right alongside you with your family growing up while you're working. And that's basically been my story. And taking that moment to appreciate it. Feel free to sign up, and maybe I'll convince you to go for the daily post at some point. Thank you. We're here because of our listeners, and we appreciate each of you.
Absolutely. And you can reach us here as a Fractional team at email@fractional.
Thank you so much.
Catch you next time.